And fellow alcoholics of Virginia, congratulations for your support of wild country and elk habitat, ensuring a future that we can pass on to generations yet unborn. You should congratulate yourself on your years of commitment and your dedication to what we do. It's a great organization, and I'm honored to be a volunteer and a lead volunteer for everyone here in Virginia. I've been asked tonight to introduce a very special guest. We're very pleased and honored to have Mr. Bob Duncan join us. He is our new director of the Virginia Department of Game and Inland Fisheries. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. Bob has asked tonight to give us a few words. So Bob, if you could join us. Ultimate steward of wildlife in the Commonwealth. We are pleased that he is a director with us. We are absolutely excited to have him on board. So thank you, Bob.
Thank you. Thank you, Tinker. And let me just say good evening to everyone. It's a pleasure for me to be here with all of you. Many of you I've known for quite a few years. I've had the privilege of hunting with several of you. And let me just say, as the director of the Game Department, it's a real privilege to serve all the sportsmen and women of Virginia. And I just want you to know that we appreciate all that you're doing. I will tell you, and I want to congratulate Bobby, because that is a richly deserved award. These folks, Tinker and Bobby and a lot of other folks seated out here this evening for a number of years have been working on a lot of different conservation projects. And I just want to commend you and thank you for your devotion and dedication and for your persistence as well. And good things are happening. I know y'all are achieving some wonderful things all across the country, and I want to compliment you for that as well. I asked for a moment there's something I just wanted to mention to you, just to share with you this evening that might give you some encouragement and to kind of bring you up to speed on something as well. But before I do that, let me just acknowledge that, you know, for a long time, I mean, historically we certainly had elk in Virginia, and I've always found that fascinating that they were here. If you look at the place names across Virginia, I used to work in a place that was called Elk Garden. There's Elk Creek, and there's all kinds of places that were named after some of the critters that were here a long time ago. And of course, then we went through a period where we eliminated a lot of things that were originally here. You know, when I think about it now, when I think of what kind of recovery we've had and what kind of remarkable programs we've had, thanks to your support as sportsmen of Virginia, you know, the deer harvest this year, Patterson and I were talking earlier, the deer harvest this year was 251,000 deer registered in Virginia, 250,000 deer, and our black bear harvest went over 2,000 for the first time ever. It was 2,204 black bears taken. So when you think about a lot of things, the good old days are now. And of course, we have some challenges. We've got some big challenges with bobwhite quail. That's a species, along with a lot of other grassland bird species, that aren't doing particularly well. But we've gone through a period where we didn't have elk, and now we do have some elk. We don't know exactly how many, but we have some elk that have come across the line. And I was asking Bobby if he was familiar with the term "come here." I worked away from Virginia. I was raised in Southwest Virginia, but I worked away many, many years ago before I had the opportunity to come back and go to work for the Game Department. And it wasn't until I arrived in Richmond in Hanover County that I first heard the term "come here." How many of you, raise your hand, you've heard the term "come here"? Okay. Probably if I ask how many of you were native Virginians, it might be the same number. But anyway, I want to tell you a true story to make a point. A friend of mine who was not from Virginia, happened to be from New Jersey, was working on the eastern shore of Virginia for the Nature Conservancy. He was in charge of all the islands, the Barrier Islands. He was in charge of stewardship for those land holdings. And this was quite a few years ago, and he was a single fellow, and he was courting a gal back home. And they were writing letters every day. He was writing letters, and he had to go to the little post office in Nassauwattix, I believe it was, to get the mail from his girlfriend. And the lady that was in charge of the post office never failed to remind him that he was a come here, that he wasn't native, he was a come here. And she kind of took an interest in the fact that he had this long distance romance going on. But every day he'd go to pick up the mail and drop off his letter he was going to mail. She would just harass him a little bit about being a come here and courting somebody out of Virginia. And finally one day he said, "Bob," he said, "I just couldn't take it anymore. I just had to confront her." He said, Ma'am, he said, let me just ask you a question. If I just break it off with the girl up in New Jersey, my hometown, and just stop dating her, and I start dating a local girl and I marry her, would you then quit calling me a come here? Would I cease to be a come here? And she looked at him, she said, nope, that doesn't change the marital status. He said, well, wait a minute, let me go a step further then. If I marry a local girl and we have kids, he said, what would you consider them? Would you consider them come heres or not? And he said, she never missed a beat. She looked him right in the eye and she said, Sonny, just because a cat has kittens in an oven, it don't make them biscuits. Well, let me tell you, he married a local girl and they have a truckload of kids, and I think they're all pretty native now. So anyway, we have these elk down in Southwest Virginia. The estimates have been up to maybe 150 at some time. We don't really know. They do move back and forth across the line. We know we've had calves born in Virginia. So when I think about the elk situation, it's no longer that we're thinking about whether or not we ought to introduce elk. We have elk in Virginia. And of course, and I've had some discussions with folks about, well, what are we going to do about that? Are we going to manage them? Are we going to try to, work with that resource and see what we can do with it? And what do the people in Southwest Virginia feel about it? And all kinds of things I think that we need to be checking on. So to that end, what I wanted to share with you this evening, which I hope you will find exciting and encouraging, and the other is the simple fact that the other day I called David Ledford, who is one of your Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation staff members. David's title is the Appalachian Wildlife Initiative Director, and he's been doing a lot of great work, working with coal companies, working on habitat work that benefits not only elk, but lots of bobwhite quail and lots of other species. And I certainly saw that firsthand years ago when I went up to St. Mary's, Pennsylvania, and looked at the elk herd up there and saw all the wonderful work that they've been doing, and was really impressed with what it meant to all wildlife, not just elk. But the fact is, we've invited Dave Ledford to come over to our April 7th board meeting, and I've got to call the director, my counterpart, John Gassett, who is the commissioner in Kentucky, and ask his permission and blessing. I'd like to contact one of their board members who has been right active in the elk program, and invite one of their board members to come over with David and address our board on Kentucky's experiences, what their program, how it got started, what have been the challenges, the pluses and the minuses, and just to share the experience that they've had over there relative to their elk program as a way to educate our staff and our board on what can be, what the possibilities are. And so anyway, I just wanted to mention that to you. On April 7th, there will be, it's already on the agenda, that we'll be having a discussion at the Game Department board meeting on the elk program in Kentucky, and then what that might mean relative to the future here in Virginia. So I just appreciate the opportunity to share that, and again, thank all of you. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Please support our sponsors, HuntingLife.com. Pursue your passions of hunting, conservation, and a well-lived life.